We're living in fascinating times right now. We're actually really in the world of research going from a world as flat to a world as round change and understanding how our body works in regards to chronic pain issues and all of these different things that we thought were significant. We're finding that they have different stories that are actually happening. So with current research right now, we've recently discovered that 40% of people without symptoms whatsoever, meaning they're not reporting any pain issues, actually have some degree of a herniated or bulging disc. So how is that? What's going on that a person can have a herniated or a bulging disc and not have any symptoms whatsoever? So we're living in this really interesting time period where we've been taught that there's always a problem within the tissue if you have pain. And right now we're learning that that's not necessarily the case, and pain is a little more unique than what we really have understood in the past. So if we look at some other statistics, what's really interesting is that if we look at disc degeneration, 37% of 20-year-olds actually have some degree of disc degeneration. 80% of 50-year-olds have disc degeneration, and 96, so almost 100% of the population by the time people are 80 years old have disc degeneration. And there's a large percentage of those people that report zero symptoms whatsoever. And if we look at herniated and bulging discs, 30% of 20-year-olds already have a herniated or bulging disc to some degree. 60% of 50-year-olds and 84% of 80-year-olds have a herniated or bulging disc. So again, we really need to change our understanding and become educated in understanding how pain actually works versus what we've thought has been happening with the brain and tissue trauma in the past. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to talk about some common back issues that come up for most people in regards to experiencing back pain. So the first one that's super common, again, there's over 2 billion reported cases of back pain every single year across the planet. And that's only the reported back pain incidences. That's not parts of the country or parts of the world where people don't have access to proper health and medical care. So back sprains and strains is going to be a big one. That really takes up a big bulk of what people are experiencing or why they're seeking out healthcare providers. You know, we got our raking, we got our lifting and twisting, we have, you know, lifting boxes when people are moving, playing with their children or their grandchildren. There's all of these different movements that can strain and stress those ligaments and the musculature throughout the spine. So back sprains and strains are a pretty common issue. And as we saw on those statistics before, the amount of people that actually have some kind of herniated or full-on or bulging or a fully herniated disc is significant. So again, it's so fascinating to know that a large percentage of people have these conditions going on and they report zero symptoms whatsoever. The next piece is going to be the actual degeneration within the vertebrae itself. And so not only can the discs start to deteriorate and wear out and start bulging and herniating, but the bone itself can start to deteriorate. And they can have microfractures, they can have thinning of the bone. There's all of these different things that happen throughout this spinal column. The big thing that I want you to keep in mind is that the body is completely connected. And what has happened is that the past biomedical model or the structural model has led us to focus as healthcare providers on thinking that there's one specific spot that's the problem that you're experiencing and that's the cause of everything. And what we're learning with all of this new pain science research is that we can actually have people who have a severely herniated or bulging disc have zero problems whatsoever. We can have another person report the exact same severe level of back pain and they go in and they have imaging done and there's no bulging or herniated discs at all. So what we need to be able to do is we need to get to a point where we really understand that the whole body is connected, that the pieces and parts all work together, and we're not some automobile or some building where you can just take out one part and put in a new part without it affecting everything else within the system. And as soon as we can make that shift and more of our medical system really starts approaching the body and understanding that the back just connects the top and the bottom together, the front of the body is just the front of the back, the more we're going to be able to accurately and effectively help people manage and treat their pain and get them moving and functioning better. So as we look at some of the images of how these muscles and the fascial tissue works within the body, and the nerves as well, we have to understand that all of these muscles and all of the connective tissues and all the veins and the arteries are all long strings and tubes, or they're long sheets of tissue in the body. Embryologically, when the body is developing, what happens is that the body develops all in layers at the same time. It doesn't just develop one gear or one part or one muscle. It's that whole sheet of tissue that develops. And it's the same thing within our fascial tissue. Within the fascial tissue that connects everything together, this fascial tissue is responsible for holding everything together, for kind of keeping everything in its proper parts or area of the body. And the fascial tissue and the fascia word has really blown up the last 5 to 10 years in particular. Now, obviously, we have always had fascia in our body, but recent updates in technology and imaging have really allowed the medical community to see how prolific the fascial tissue is within our body. That being said, you can never just treat one single area within the body to facilitate health and vitality and longevity overall.